Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Matthew. I'm joined by Alice, Ying, and Sunny, and our presentation is over the tasting room at Uptown Park. First, we're going to cover the background of the tasting room. Next, we're going to describe the attributes that make up the tasting room as well as identify key segments of their clientele. Then, we're going to categorize opportunities to improve based off of Yelp reviews as well as our own observations. The results of our findings will then be applied to the gap analysis model, which will aid us in providing recommendations to make an already successful business even more successful. As you can see, the tasting room at Uptown Park is located just off of 610 north of the Galleria. The photo on the right gives you an idea of where the tasting room is in relation to the rest of Houston. In order to understand the tasting room at Uptown Park, one must learn about the founder, Jerry Lasco. Originally a pilot by trade, his job became furloughed because of 9/11, and he found himself out of work. He worked at the Houston Wine Merchant for a couple of years, learning about the industry and creating a business plan with his wife Laura. At the time, the only places to grab a glass of wine were white tablecloth service upscale restaurants. He wanted to make wine less pretentious and more approachable. In 2003, the 900 square feet tasting room at Uptown Park was opened and included wines by the glass, by the bottle, and by the case. Patrons could enjoy a glass of wine at the venue as well as purchase wine for off-premise consumption. In 2007, a full kitchen debuted, featuring upscale offerings as well as comfort foods. Live music also became a regular fixture. In 2013, the tasting room underwent large-scale renovations, which included expanding the patio and revamping the reserve room. Wine lockers were also installed, which allowed regulars to store wine for on-premise consumption. And here we are in 2016. The tasting room acquired a mixed beverage permit and introduced liquor and craft cocktails, which means they're no longer a wine bar or wine cafe. This is a strong deviation from their beginnings. A champagne and oyster bar was installed, and they also brought in brunch. This is the tasting room that we see today. The mission and goals of the tasting room are simple and straightforward. They can best be exemplified as an approachable and fun environment where patrons can enjoy a great glass of wine minus the pretension.
Now let's take a look at its brand identity prism. It's an effective tool to help market a brand by identifying its identity from 6 aspects. The physical environment of the tasting room is elegant yet approachable. The combination of brick wall, dark-colored furniture, and the unique lights made of wine bottles created a very romantic ambiance. When we visited the tasting room for the first time, we were dressed quite casually and apparently not their ideal customers. Their host Anne, however, was very welcoming and gave us a baby tour of the whole property. With the premium location, casually elegant environment, extensive wine list, and a somewhat pricey menu, it's fair to say that they portray their ideal customers as posh, successful, and wealthy. The brand's personality can basically be represented by the founder, Mr. Jerry Lasco, who is versatile, hospitable, and relaxed. His intention to demystify the whole wine snob thing reflects that he's cultured yet unassuming. The culture of the tasting room Uptown Park can best be described as something for everyone. They have various beverages and food items. They have room for individuals, couples, as well as large groups. Despite the fact that we are not their target customers, we didn't feel out of place enough to feel uncomfortable. The tasting room Uptown Park wants customers to feel successful and entertained by consuming fine wine and quality food in an elegant yet relaxing environment while enjoying live music featuring everything from Texas country to Latin jazz. The tasting room is a fairly expensive and upscale place to eat and drink. Therefore, being seen as a customer portrays a certain level of status and wealth. And these people want to be surrounded by those of similar accomplishments and success. The tasting room thus provides a sense of belonging and conformity.
The semiotic square helps a business segment their clientele and then better market towards these customers. On the first continuum, we have level of knowledge, with amateur being the least knowledgeable to aficionado, which is the most knowledgeable. An amateur enjoys good wine and food and has a basic level of knowledge, but lacks the level of knowledge that the aficionado has. The amateur seeks out recommendations and lacks the confidence to choose menu items on his own. The aficionado enjoys good wine and food and also possesses a high level of knowledge. The aficionado likely has greater knowledge than the bartender or server, orders for the table, and is an expert regarding food and wine. On the second continuum, we have relationship status, with Cougar Den being most single and available to date night, which includes being the most taken. Cougar Den includes patrons who are looking to mingle and find someone. Date night includes couples who aren't looking for someone. They are already taken. This can include married couples as well as people on a date. On the top, we have posh socialite couples. These are couples looking to enjoy fine wine and good food with other couples of similar status and wealth. On the bottom, we have the workaholic businessman. This person is successful in their career and personal life, but can't disconnect from work. He wants to enjoy good food and drink on the patio in an environment where he can work on Excel spreadsheets and have conference calls to Asia. He enjoys good food and wine, but isn't concerned with semantics. He cares little about food presentation, only that it is sustenance, or vintage, only that it is a big heavily oaked California cab or buttery Chardonnay.
The ServQual model is a quality management framework that measures the quality in the service sector. We utilize mostly Yelp reviews and our observation in order to apply to the ServQual model. Based on these, we identify three most important components ordered from the most prevalent to least prevalent. So the most important service failure was lack of responsiveness. It took 15 minutes to get the menu, half of an hour to get the drink, and some of the reviews said they never received the food that they ordered. The next most prevalent component is lack of assurance. We observed food handlers not wearing hairnets and gloves in the kitchen, as well as bartenders not using gloves when making cocktails. Also, many reviews said that the staffs were rude. An example was the guest asked their server's name and the server responded, "Why do you want to know?" Moreover, the employees we observed seemed unhappy and disinterested and lacked smiles or a sense of enthusiasm in their service. Lastly, many reviews mentioned mediocre food quality, including burnt, overcooked, and carelessly presented. The third most important service failure is lack of accuracy. One example is inaccurate billing. There were multiple occasions of staff misrepresenting the price of the menu items as well as providing an inaccurate check. From the ServQual model, we placed 4 service failures related to Gap 2 into Gap analysis. This is caused by incorrect delivery, inappropriate perceptions of service experience or outcome. In conclusion, the tasting room's major issues are related to the service delivery and failing to meet the customer's perception of effective service.
Now that we have categorized their service failures, we'd like to give some recommendations to help alleviate the problems. For delayed service, we believe that it's necessary to redesign their service process. From the time guests are greeted and seated to when the order is put in the POS system, the whole process should happen in a very timely and organized manner. This will ensure that the service process follows a more efficient flow. Uncheerful or even rude staff is definitely a deal breaker for any establishment in hospitality industry. The hiring and performance evaluation process needs to be examined to make sure the service quality meets the company's standards and customers' expectations. To improve food quality and ensure consistency, the tasting room should evaluate their cooking process and standards. Make sure that every cook prepares and plates food in the optimal and the same way. Inaccurate billing calls for training. Otherwise, people will consider the tasting room Uptown Park unreliable and untrustworthy. That's all for our presentation. We hope that you will find it helpful. Thank you all for listening.